and Achilles pain. And unless you go ahead and correct what's going on in the core and also in the calves, you cannot correct plantar fasciitis and Achilles pain. I hear many crazy things about people putting boots on at night and things of that sort, and the reality is we're dealing with the symptom. We're not really dealing with the functional problem. And you correct problems by dealing with the functional problem, not just the symptoms. Identifying pronation and supination. You'll see on the diagram to the right how the right foot collapses in and the foot toes out. That's called overpronation. Pronation is a normal part of gait. The foot turns out slightly, which dissipates shock and allows for proper push-off from the toes. Overpronation, it turns out too much, causing the knee to roll in and the hip to drop. The net effect is it increases stress on all the structures, not just the arch necessarily, but it's actually foot flare dependent. In other words, it's not just a flat foot. It's when the foot turns out, you lose a lot of energy from the ground. So it not only strains the structures, but you lose energy as well. So in essence, you may be, with overpronation, since this is very inefficient, you may be using much more energy to do your run or your walk than you would if you had, say, an arch underneath that, which brings us to something that we'll get into in a moment, but we'll talk about orthotics. Over and under striding is the effect of asymmetry. In other words, what ends up happening is one leg will take a shorter stride and the other will compensate with a longer stride. You will also compensate on the upper side of the body. The net effect is it torques the pelvis. Since we power the body through the pelvis, if you torque the pelvis, you lose leverage, therefore your legs will tighten. The myofascia or the connective tissue will compensate and make the problem permanent unless you understand the problem exists. Once you understand what the problem is and you understand this is a problem of gait, then you can go ahead and treat it effectively and stop a lot of the processes that are now tightening you up and creating a lot of the pains, which I call cracks in the pavement. Essentially, what that means is that we know that there are cracks in the pavement, but until you load it up, we don't know how bad they are, and you're finding that out. You can counteract these effects using things like foot orthotics, body work like myofascial release, ART or active release techniques, Graston and other methods as well, are the soft tissue methods. Let's take a look at Paula Radcliffe. She's off to the side here, and when we take a look at Paula Radcliffe, this was her at the finish line. That's not what you saw though, because the thing is, she had a major asymmetry. We're going to watch a video of her to show you. She runs through her pain, except this past year when the pain outlasted her, she was ignoring it, and what happened is she not only broke down at the finish line, but she came back when she ended the race. What ended up happening is she lost enough speed where she came in second, and she then just broke down at the finish line. The girl that's consoling her actually was the winner. If you know about Paula Radcliffe, just a little background, she is the world record holder, but in 2009 at the New York City Marathon, she limped across the finish line and her asymmetry did get the best of her. Our goal is for you to finish and beyond, not only just the run, but the bike and the swim, since your body mechanics will affect all three sports. So let's take a look at Paula Radcliffe as she comes in. Now I want you to take a close look at her as she actually comes in towards the finish line. Now what you're going to go ahead and see is, if you take a look at her shoulder, you'll notice that one shoulder is actually striding much more forward and the other one not so much. So when you understride and you overstride in the lower body, you do the same thing in the upper body. And you can see she's really fighting to get through the finish line. And there she is. Now if we go back, this is what ended up happening at the actual finish line. So this is as she crossed the line. And what ended up happening is she was having a lot of pain because overstriding and understriding kills a runner. And here is somebody who was determined to come in, and she still came in second with all that asymmetry. You don't have to be that way. We don't want you to be that way, and we want you to go ahead and succeed in your goal, which is completing this and completing it and having a good time and enjoyable time doing this. Let's go into picking the right shoe, or the best shoe. Last styles. There's something called a straight last or a motion control shoe. If you look at the diagrams on the left, for an overpronator, straight last, the bottom of the shoe looks relatively straight. And if you look at the diagram on the bottom, it shows a very stringent motion control shoe, and you'll notice the middle portion is very, very wide. As you go into an underpronator or a neutral shoe, if you look at the diagrams to the right, you'll notice it gets a little bit thinner and it becomes more banana looking like. And a true underpronator really doesn't need a lot of that support. And essentially what this does is it stiffens the middle of the shoe. And as if you look at the diagram of the shoe last on the right side versus the left, you'll see that the midsection of the shoe is actually thinner. So last style, straight or motion control. Intermediate control from mild to moderate over pronator, stiff through the midsection of the shoe. And then we have curved, which is banana-like. Typically that's what we see in racing shoes. So if you have any kids or you know any people that are actually racing indoor or outdoor, their shoes don't have a lot of support. And if you're an overpronator, you need an insert in that shoe that'll fit the shoe, because these things kind of fit like a glove, but that insert will actually give you much more leverage off the line. Orthotics basics, off-the-shelf inserts. You often get what you pay for. Those Dr. Scholl's ones that you pick up for $8, not only do they not work, but all they do is they give you a little bit of cushion, and that's about it. There's absolutely no control that comes from that device. Stay away from that. The heel cup idea, stay away from that as well, because if you're getting heel pain, cushioning the heel when the problem is your gait isn't really helping you. All it is basically boxing you in when you're trying to go ahead and do certain things, and it's kind of like saying, well, it hurts when I don't do that, so well, let's not do it. So better brands include Spenco, Superfeet, and there are other ones as well. The bottom should be stiff, and if you look at the example in the photograph, you'll see that the bottom is a stiff plastic.